Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Fratello Talks. I'm your host Nacho, and today I'm joined by my colleagues
RJ
and
Lex.
and we are going to be talking about humor and levity in watches and watchmaking. But before we do that, of course, let's get into wrist check. Lex, what is on your wrist today?
I'm wearing my Omega Speedmaster, the replica or relaunch. It's an Omega. By the way,
khaki green.
it's a
rubber
faux leather, full rubber. What is it from the French? The French
Joseph
dudes.
Bonny. Yeah. Serica.
Joseph Bonny.
Yeah.
Who knows him not?
Very nice. And you were going to say, by the way?
Yeah, I also bought a dog actually.
You bought a dog?
Yeah, I bought a dog and I named it Omega.
Okay.
You know why?
No.
He's a watchdog.
Okay. Wow, we're starting straight into the deep end. So before we drown RJ, what's on your wrist today?
That's funny too, actually, what RJ is wearing.
Is it?
Yeah,
What
it's
is it?
super funny.
Same watch as Lex.
It's the same.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this the first time that we have one of these watch faux pas where both people are wearing the same
I
watch?
think,
It
yeah.
might be.
Yeah.
It might
No,
be.
but look, it's completely different on the.
Well, it's a completely different strap.
strap.
It's the same watch.
That's the original.
Made
strap.
of the dog of Lex.
Made out of
My watchdog.
poor Omega. Oh no!
He was a poor watchdog.
You guys should compare
The
serial
three-legged
numbers.
dog.
Yeah.
It's now.
Should compare serial numbers and see how close they are.
This is
They're-
a 2001.
This one as well.
Well, we'll check in later and see how close
They
those
have the
serial
same
numbers are.
serial number.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm wearing our limited edition
look at that.
Jacques Bianchi JB200 Pole Pro. This is with our night diver with the luminous dial, and obviously featuring the everybody's
nice.
favorite cephalopod on the dial there, the eight-legged octopus, the Animo representing Marseille. It's a limited edition that we launched earlier this year, and
You
wearing
see those
it,
wandering the streets of Marseille a lot.
Yeah,
if
you do.
Go to Marseille.
if you're near the coast
Yeah.
at night, they wander the
Get
streets.
clubbed over the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, by an octopus. Yeah.
It's actually a good watch for the
It's
topic
kind of-
because
yeah,
it
so
is kind of
It
lighthearted.
does embrace the lightheartedness. It puts a bit of a cartoon character on the dial. But I think that So to get back to the topic of the day, we're talking about a bit of humor and lightheartedness in watchmaking. Is this something that's always been there?
I want to make another remark first
Okay, go
because
ahead.
RJ
Yes.
and I also could have worn the same light-hearted watch today. It's a watch you don't wear often. I might say
I know,
never.
But I know where it is.
Yeah, it's a Modus Lacroix icon with the
of
Benzilla dial.
Yeah, the sort of
Very
in
colorful,
graffiti,
impossible to read the time.
I sometimes wear it to the gym
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it's
that's a very
Yeah.
light-hearted
Solid watch.
It's a more recent example. But has there been a track record? Is humor in watchmaking something that's been around for a long time, or is
Not-
it something that's relatively
not
new?
as long as erotic watches, which is also funny, but it's not light-hearted.
It's-
But
You have to
that's,
remember,
that's where it
but-
started.
Yeah,
the watches are made in
guess.
Switzerland, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Doesn't help.
No, exactly. Yeah,
They're more
it's,
horny than funny. But
Apparently so.
But in recent years, humor
recent years.
has made
Yeah.
it across the border.
that is actually. But
It's been-
there,
it's been
I think there's a
imported.
difference between humor
Yes.
and lightheartedness. I mean, I
Exactly.
think putting Mickey on a watch dial is not necessarily a watch joke,
No.
but
no.
it's still a bit lighthearted.
Might be in Switzerland.
In exactly, yeah. That's the pinnacle of humor in Switzerland. Here
Yeah.
we just think, okay, it's
Okay.
kind of
It's
nice.
Mickey Mouse.
It's
Yeah.
not. It's not exactly ha.
But the
funny,
first,
right?
the first real watch joke. What was the first real watch joke?
Well, we can look at some recent. Do you think
What?
was it Panerai?
You mean? Do you mean the original Panerai?
No, of course not. I'm talking about the infamous Katzomir.
the Casimir. My
Dick joke of
God.
watches.
Yeah, and it exists, people. We will show a picture of the Casimir.
on the horny to humorous spectrum. Where do
Yeah,
you think
that's a
that lies?
crossover. That's a crossover.
Maybe that is where things
My-
crossed over.
Yeah. Yeah,
Unbelievable.
beautiful.
Okay. No, but
The good
let's
thing
look at
is,
some
it's
recent,
rumored that in 2025 it will make.
return. Oh, good lord. Yeah.
God, so good.
But we could trace its roots maybe back to the infamous Panerai Casimir. I'm sorry, but we will have put a picture of that up over the podcast. This might be the first one where we get potentially demonetized by YouTube. Actually,
Why?
That'll be a first.
talking
They're very
but-
sensitive. Anyway, so let's talk about perhaps some more recent examples of humor in watches, and which are
most
more
I
likely
try
to
to.
be.
Yeah, several times actually.
Yeah, it never worked.
No. What was there first? Was that the
was the cheese
the
watch,
cheese
right?
watch was the
Cheese
first
watch,
one.
right?
That was the 100% Swiss watch, right?
Yeah.
Made of cheese. That was it also had the cowhide,
funny.
I think.
Cowhide strap, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Cowhide, cheese. What else?
It's a bit of an inside joke, I feel, that one. But perhaps looking at something like
No, but yeah, I know, but that definitely
from Moser,
was.
but they also did this Apple Watch, mechanical sort of
that a
Apple
joke?
Watch. I don't know if it's a joke, but I thought it was quite funny that as
Yeah,
the
that's
seconds
the-
it was the little loading icon.
Yeah.
So in fact, it's a mechanical watch, but it kind of looks like a broken Apple Watch or an Apple Watch that's having
That's
trouble.
I
funny,
think
moving.
it. I think it was. I think it
They're
was
Swiss,
kind
they're
of
still
meant
Swiss.
as a joke.
Yeah.
But I also I think it completely overshot because at the time, if you, I don't know, maybe if you were a visionary like we probably are, we could already forecast that the Apple Watch and the smartwatch would never push the luxury watch from the stage, and
No,
that it was always
Set it from the start.
yeah.
But you could say that these smartwatches
Okay,
and Apple
actually,
Watches,
but-
they're watches in name only, right? They're more
Yeah,
wearable
and
tech.
so
Yeah.
but it was a little bit like, and later I think IWC also did an ad. Schaffhausen is where all the great
They did some
Swiss
great
companies
ads
is from.
like 20
Yeah,
years
they did
ago.
great. No, they did great ads.
Yeah.
they did great ads.
They
but
could
they
not
did,
get away with it today.
No, you couldn't. And
But they're
then,
awesome.
but that wasn't probably even
Yeah.
meant to be funny. But there was also this. They also
accident.
did a commercial where they had Kurt Klaus walking to an Apple store or something that looked like an Apple store and trying to explain something, and then he was, well, I already did that or whatever. It's like it's.
Attempts.
Two completely different worlds trying to. It was just.
But I think that's probably the issue is the fact that watches are not very funny, and trying to convey humor through watches is not an easy.
they're not
easy
maybe
feat.
not the easiest stage to make a joke.
But I do believe that we've seen in recent times, right? Because this is what sort of has inspired
that's
the topic of today's
recent
conversation.
times.
It's been people like Seconde,
Yeah.
using this very sort of subdued, almost tongue-in-cheek type of humor.
Yeah.
Very clever, but also
But
tastefully
also
done,
exactly
and
aesthetically
interesting
quite pleasing.
and aesthetically pleasing. I think the one of the recent examples was the Date Just, which gets turned into the DJ, and then he puts a record,
yeah.
a record
That's
on
nice.
the seconds hand, and it's DJ spin that shit. And I think it's got layers. It's funny. And
the
it's
Christopher
really well
Ward
done.
desk diver.
The Desk Diver was also one that we were talking about.
That was aesthetically very pleasing. I thought but the thing is a concept like that, is it like will it have a long lasting funny effect? Because you're
Well-
basically looking at the same joke, you're hearing the same joke over and over and
Right.
over and over again.
So here's why I think that has much more potential than, say, something like
Horace with Kermit.
Or with Kermit, or even something
video
like
was
the,
nice.
the Constantine.
was- yeah.
That was funny.
yeah, that was excellent. The puppet
But
work.
it, but I applaud Oris for that light-hearted
definitely.
attempt.
It was more lighthearted than humorous, and I do believe there's also something like the Constantin Chaikin Joker, which is also
Yeah.
more lighthearted. But I think what's nice about the humor in something like the work of Seconde is the fact that it comes from a place of having a deep understanding and respect for watches.
yeah.
So it's clever. It doesn't belittle the watch that it's talking
Yeah.
about, but it almost uses like a reference to make it something That's a little bit more, right? The desk diver, it's a commonly used term, but you might only know it if you're deep enough into watches.
Yeah, that's true.
And then
It's an
adding
inside
certain
joke.
elements. It is an inside joke, exactly. So that's kind of why it works, is because it works perhaps more so for watch enthusiasts, but there is also that aesthetic appeal, right, of having a different seconds hand on the watch that turns a very serious functional object into something a little bit more artsy and sort of interesting.
Do you think the Cartier Crash was meant to be like lighthearted?
I think it's the story goes that it was a Cartier that had been run over by a tank in World War I or World War II or something.
Yeah, there's
like
also
that,
a
right?
story
So-
about two brothers who have a watch brand.
Oh yeah,
That this plane landed on
on the third floor.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, but
It's the fourth floor.
the fourth floor.
Two
My
brothers
God.
on the fourth floor.
I tried.
And they were not
I
two
think
brothers.
but there are so many oddly shaped Cartier watches. There's also the Shake, but that was modeled after the logo of Paris Dakar.
Yeah,
the,
true.
The rally.
Yeah.
I think the Crash was just
Design
like,
object.
it's a design object.
Yeah, for sure.
But what I actually also like is that we talk about seconde, and we had the Maurice Lacroix is very niche, but also one of the most serious watch brands in the world, Rolex, does lighthearted stuff.
they have a side. They keep it
balloons,
locked away.
Yeah.
the jigsaw,
Yeah, but every
Yeah,
now
the
and then it
jigsaw, the
emerges.
balloons. I
Yeah.
mean,
the gold deep sea.
well, that is probably the best watch joke ever made.
Absolutely.
I like it.
Oh
nice.
my God.
Yeah, but you're a funny guy.
Yeah.
Exactly. What about this? You remember the Moser Swiss legend or Swiss icon Swiss legend, where it takes elements from all of these famous watches? It's a
that.
little bit of Nautilus. It's a little bit of this. It's a little bit
Good
of
point.
that.
Forgot
That-
about that
Didn't
one.
that piss off a lot of brands?
Oh, that was
But that's how you know it's a good joke.
Was it? Yeah. That was the funny part. Yeah.
exactly. No,
Yeah.
but it's true. But I think that the question is, do we think that there is a space for maybe both humor and lightheartedness? I think there's certainly a space for
Definitely.
lightheartedness in watches,
Definitely.
and I think that there's a lot of that being brought in by there's some of it in larger brands, but there's small brands. I always think of Mr. Jones watches in the UK. They have a lot of
that's-
lightheartedness. There's obviously the perfectly lazy afternoon. There's also the Memento Mori and some of these that are just that are just interesting watches. There's a bit of dark humor, which I think is nice from a British brand. Obviously, British humor tends to be quite dark, but also a bit abstract, of course. So looking at Monty Python.
But when you have dark humor in a watch, you also need plenty of superluminova.
Yes,
because
exactly.
there has to be balance, right? Okay, that's a
You
watch
didn't even
joke.
have to look at your list of
I
watch
just made
jokes for
that
that.
up. That's
Oh my God.
that's stand-up watch
Yeah.
comedy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, but
Happens.
I think is there room for humor in watches?
No.
No? Okay. How about for levity?
I think lightheartedness is nice, but I also think it applies to any object. I don't think is there a funny object?
Yes. Yes. To answer,
Bring in the funny object. Could you please bring in the funny object?
Bring a funny object, man.
There's like the classic sort of comedy trope of anything that should be quite small but then is enormous. I think that those swatches that they had hanging at the boutiques that are gigantic swatches are quite a funny object.
They're funny on the wrist. They're not funny on the wall.
They could work on the wall. Then you could argue it's still a bit of a.
But a funny
caricature.
that's a good point. Is there a funny object?
Yeah, like a
Please
rubber
leave-
chicken.
Well, it clearly depends on how much you
A unicycle.
had for drink, but
Yeah. But lightheartedness, yeah.
lightheartedness definitely.
For the record, we
definitely.
should say that this is a sober podcast. It's you had a coffee.
Sponsored
I'm
by
having a
Heineken.
Coffee. Yeah, that would be nice. No, but I think with some levity, it can blend with watches quite well because it is a rather serious functional object. But then having something that's a little bit humorous is quite nice. They're also quite personal objects.
Yeah.
And so I think in a way having a little bit of humor and lightheartedness to them can be quite nice. But yeah, I think we've talked a lot of about a lot of examples from Seconde, Mr. Jones. Of course, there's also Studio Underdog. Studio Underdog's whole premise at the beginning was that the watch industry is very serious. It takes itself very seriously.
Yeah,
but it believed that there was Richard, the founder, believed that there was a room for a little bit of lightheartedness, and it then he
I think
he
it's
used the
kind of,
concept
but it's also that in what you get in the end is
Yeah.
just a very it's a pleasing dial.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
if you
It's
if
more
you like the
lighthearted.
colors, I
Yeah.
mean the aubergine, call it an aubergine,
the
or
mint
if
choc
you-
chip.
it- lovely, a lovely dial.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that there is some room for levity more than humor, perhaps, because humor is
Yeah.
also deeply a subjective thing.
It's even
but I
more
think,
subjective than taste. I
Oh,
would
for
say,
sure.
just
Yeah,
taste
sure.
and
Yeah.
But it is true that people are very, very serious. We also see that in the comments.
Well,
Sometimes it is a little bit
it's-
gets a little bit too serious
Yeah,
for what
people
it
should
is.
not take themselves too seriously,
No.
but it also applies to brands and so on, and to us.
Definitely.
But I think in the last podcast,
Mhm.
where we were wearing exactly the same outfits.
Yeah.
Because it was
same.
recorded an hour ago.
Yeah. I took my jacket off. So I thought no one would tell.
Yeah, they know.
Oh,
People know.
man.
We have
Come
we
on.
have a very clever audience.
We do. Yeah.
Respect.
Does your
No, but,
watch podcast? That's another.
We touched upon the topic when I said some people don't want to have the Speedmaster Snoopy because they don't want to have a comic character on the dial.
Yeah, there's also the Snoopy, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they just don't want it.
Mm.
It's yeah.
What about so because we'd say that it is something very personal. What about Caseback engravings? There's a couple of famous Caseback engravings.
Well,
Not that. Not that. I know what you're thinking.
Can I
but
say it?
there's no.
what? Yeah, I know. I want to
No,
know it. Come on.
So there's
Hey.
the famous "fuck 'em if they can't take a joke." That's a famous Caseback engraving. I can't recall whose watch that was on, but there's also the famous "Don't sell me."
Oh yeah,
Was that from Christian Hagen?
yeah. I
Don't
think
sell me.
Christian
Or not
had
for
that.
sale or something.
Who
Yeah.
put that there? And there was also I think that's a joke that's been told perhaps now a few too many times. I think the drive safe one is also it's
was
probably
not a
not
joke.
supposed to be funny. It's probably
No,
not a joke,
that
but
was not a joke.
can be kind of funny. But I think engraving something a funny quote on the back of a watch, not that, can also be done in poor taste. We'll tell you.
No, you have to tell me now.
No, we can't.
Why not?
We'll get cancelled. We'll
Yeah.
get
Really?
taken off
Is it
the
that
air.
bad?
It's really bad.
It was told
Sorry
to us,
to the
It was told
audience
to us
who
by a brand.
DM RJ.
There are some at some brands.
Dear listeners, I
Like-
will
like
write a
also-
story with the comment hidden.
like also with
the joke
Apple
in it.
products,
Yeah,
you
also.
can have your watch engraved.
Yeah.
And apparently, one brand told us that what was engraved. And they also
A
had to
memorable example.
yeah, they also had to laugh about it internally. It was a certain color, right?
Yeah, it was a whole thing, and it's,
Yeah, you can't keep talking about
you give
it if
people
you're not
freedom.
if you're not
you give people
don't
freedom
explain
to
what it
engrave.
is.
No, but I think a humorous Caseback engraving is also certainly a way
Humorous
to way to
Caseback
do it. That's one way to introduce humor into watchmaking. Clearly,
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but lightheartedness. What else could we talk about? What are other examples? Perhaps
I'm completely done now.
small detail. You're done already. We call this as the shortest podcast. What about the little devil tail in the Minerva?
That's not a joke.
It's a bit lighthearted.
You
It's
can't
not a
play
joke.
with you,
It's not a
you don't,
joke.
don't make fun of the devil.
But isn't it a bit of a devil's in the details sort of
Ooh, that's
tongue in
nice.
cheek kind
That's
of
nice.
pun kind of thing? I don't think it's. I think it's
No, I
just
don't
part
think
of the
it's
logo.
a pun.
But it's also certainly a bit lighthearted.
It's definitely beautiful. I have to say, that's the highlight of every modern Minerva movement.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're just not funny. It's terrible. No, but yeah. I think should we call it there? I think we've exhausted ourselves with humor.
I
No,
think
but I think
the result is there are no funny watches.
No,
There are no funny watches. There is no. Do you remember the
They're funny stories, perhaps.
They're funny stories, exactly. That's it. And sometimes
The
you
Pulp
have
Fiction
remarkable.
like any Bell and Ross.
That's
oh, come on.
yeah. No, or the jackpot. Do you remember the Girard
Oh,
Perregaux with the little lever on the? That was not. Yeah,
Was that Girard Perregaux? I
Yeah,
thought
that
it
was
was,
the one arm band. It was a Girard Perregaux.
Was it-
There's of course
wasn't
Jacob and Co does roulette.
Yeah,
there was
that's-
another.
there was another,
casino watch.
Wasn't it a Jacob and Co thing? Also with the but that was a horny one as
Oh,
well.
that
So
was a
that
Richard Mille.
Richard Mille, that's the
That
one.
was definitely an attempt at humor.
Yeah.
Oh.
The
It's humor?
the with
was-
the
yeah.
that was also another crossover between
The two H's of
yeah.
of watchmaking, the
With
humor
the-
and horniness.
that was was very
It's
weird.
long winters in Switzerland.
Very long.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, but I think perhaps there's more place for humor in watch podcasting than there is for in
That's a
watchmaking.
very good conclusion. That's a very good conclusion.
What are you? But
Yeah,
did you
yeah,
print?
Please.
So
I
There's
print
no
paper.
comment of the week this week, but Lex has prepared some.
Yeah. Wait.
There's no comment of the week this week.
There's no
No,
comment of the
there's a
week.
joke of the
Instead,
week.
Lex will give us some some
okay.
watch-related humor.
So this is one from Moser actually, because they made the watch that was made of cheese and
It's very funny.
And it's very funny. So what do you get when you cross a watch part and a cow?
I don't know. Tell us, Lex.
A movement. Yeah.
Oy, 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 come on. Brilliant.
And on that bombshell.
On that bombshell, we wrap up this week's podcast. Yeah, thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming next week. Yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave your best joke,
exactly.
watch-related jokes in the comments down below. See you next week.